Transportation Subcommittee. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Parrott, Senator Webb, Senator Wise, Representative Fugit, Representative Harris, Representative Heverin.
Here remotely in my district.
Thank you. Representative Huff, Representative Miller, Representative Rowland, Representative Sims.
Yes, ma'am. Present from home district.
Thank you. Senator Humphreys, Senator McDaniel, Representative Reed, Representative Rudy, Representative Upchurch, Co-Chair Higdon, Chair Santoro.
Here. Madam, do we have enough for quorum? We do have a quorum to do business. First thing is approval of our minutes from July 8th. We have a motion, a second. Anyone against, please indicate. Otherwise, minutes have been approved. Thank you all. First on this agenda is our Transportation Cabinet year-end report. And I believe Robin Brewer will be joining us. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, good. The floor is yours.
Okay, you all should have a presentation, hopefully. So I'm going to kind of let you all know what slide I'm on as I go so that you can follow along. So I'm starting on slide 2. So when I last presented before the committee, which I believe was back in early June, we were witnessing the impact that COVID-19 was having on the economy and how it was specifically affecting the road fund. Therefore, my presentation today will discuss how the road fund ended for fiscal year 2020 with the impact of COVID-19. As I'm sure the committee members recall, the impact of COVID-19 was already beginning to materialize in Kentucky as the 2020 regular session of the General Assembly was starting to finalize the biennial budget for the Transportation Cabinet. During the legislative process, the biennial budget was originally being developed with the official road fund revenue estimate adopted by the CFG, or the Consensus Forecasting Group, in December of 2019. During the December meeting, the CFG had adopted a control scenario for the road fund and revised the FY 2020 revenue estimate to $1,572,800,000. However, as it was becoming apparent that COVID-19 was going to have an impact on the economy, to the full extent unknown, the legislature decided to use the pessimistic scenario developed by the CFG for the enacted official revenue estimate for 2020, as well as pass a one-year budget through FY 2021. As a result, the pessimistic scenario reduced the official revenue estimate to $1,551,800,000 fiscal year 2020, which was a decrease of $21 million from the control scenario originally adopted by the CFG. Slide 3. As more time passed, it appeared that the impacts of the global pandemic were likely going to cause anticipated budget shortfalls for the general fund and the road fund. Therefore, the CFG met on May 22nd to discuss the economic impacts of COVID-19 to the state revenues for FY 2020. From that meeting, the CFG revised the revenue estimate for the road fund, which resulted in a revision of the enacted road fund revenue estimate down from $1,551,800,000 to $1,390,000,000, which was an estimated budget shortfall of $161.8 million, or 10.4% shortfall for fiscal year 2020. Slide 4. Fortunately, road fund revenues came in higher than the revised revenue estimate for 2020. However, it's important to note that road fund revenue still came in well under the official enacted revenue estimate on which the budget was based. This slide shows the comparison between the official revenue estimate and actual road funds for fiscal year 2020. Road fund collections were $60.3 million less than the enacted budget, but $101.5 million more than the May revised estimate. Due to reduced spending and the statutory reduction in revenue sharing due to the decline in motor fuel tax revenues, the road fund budget ended with a minor balance of $140,000 for the year. Slide 5. COVID-19 has impacted virtually all aspects of road fund revenues, from declining motor fuel tax revenues due to businesses closing temporarily and consumers practicing healthy at home directives, to declining motor vehicle usage tax revenues from auto dealerships closing temporarily to in-person business, to declining collection of various fees and licenses due to various government offices being temporarily closed or closed to in-person traffic, which were all actions that were needed to deal with the global pandemic. As you can see from the chart, road fund revenues were performing to expectations in the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year prior to the pandemic. Growth rates for the 4 quarters were 1.1% in the first and second quarters, 4.6% in the third quarter, and 23.6% decline in the fourth quarter. Slide 6. This slide shows a comparison between actual road fund revenues for fiscal year 2020 versus fiscal year 2019. We collected $31.6 million less in motor fuel tax revenue fiscal year 2020 than we did in fiscal year 2019. Motor fuel tax receipts were up 1% for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year, and then the coronavirus hit. With the Healthy at Home directive, as well as the closing of non-essential businesses, limited travel, causing collections to fall 19% in the final 3 months of fiscal year 2020. Motor vehicle usage taxes fell $15.2 million, or 3%. Collections in this category were robust for the first 3 quarters before experiencing a significant decline of 27.8% in the fourth quarter. Motor vehicle license revenues decreased $12.3 million. Motor vehicle operators revenues declined by $3.7 million. Investment income fell by $5.2 million, and other smaller revenue categories declined by over $6 million. Overall, in fiscal year 2020, the road fund collected $74.6 million, or 4.8% less than in fiscal year 2019. Slide 7. This slide shows the official enacted road fund revenue estimate of $1,543,400,000 fiscal year 2021, for which the budget was enacted in April. The motor fuel tax rate has been set again at the statutory floor for all of fiscal year 2021. Road fund revenues do appear to be bouncing back from indications in July collection. While motor fuel tax revenues are still down 1.1%, and weight distance tax revenues were down 6.1% in July compared to last July, other categories were experiencing growth. We've been seeing substantial growth in the motor vehicle usage tax revenues since the reopening of the economy. However, this growth is likely from some pent-up demand for cars since the shutdown, and will likely eventually level off as the demand for the purchase of vehicles normalizes or even slows. Like COVID-19, the financial situation is still evolving and will continue to evolve as the impact from the reopening of the economy continues to unfold and the number of COVID-19 cases continues. Budgetary impact for this fiscal year will be better known with time. Slide 8. This slide shows historical road fund revenues by fiscal year, from fiscal year 2014 to fiscal year 2020. As you may know, 2014 was a time when road fund revenue collections were at a peak, prior to the 6.5 cent per gallon decline in the motor fuel tax that we experienced in fiscal year 2015, and felt the full impact of that decline in fiscal year 2016. Even though it took the road fund 5 years, fiscal year 2019, we finally got back to fiscal year 2014 revenue collection. However, fiscal year 2020 revenues are back to fiscal year 2016 levels. While our budget shortfall for fiscal year 2020 was not nearly as bad as the revised revenue estimates from May's CFP meeting, and we are very thankful for that, we cannot lose sight of the fact that we collected $74.6 million less in fiscal year 2020 than we did in fiscal year 2019. I just want to remind everyone that this is a revenue stream that has had relatively little growth for many years, and a motor fuel tax rate that has been set at the statutory floor since the end of fiscal year 2015. Even if the road fund does meet the official enacted road fund revenue estimate for 2021, it would still be about $23 million less than what was collected in fiscal year 2019. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Robin. Do we have any members that have any questions or comments? Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Robin, for your report. It's always good to have you with us. And I can't remember if I've seen this. It might already be out. July figures for the fuel consumption and fuel tax. Were we on target for that for July? I guess that's the first month of the new year.
July motor fuels revenues came in about 1.1% down compared to last July. But, you know, just remember that for motor fuel tax, those are a month lag. So we're actually collecting in July what we should be seeing in June. So hopefully that will get back to more normal levels when we get August collections in, because those will be reflecting July's numbers at that point.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of our members remotely have a suggestion, comment, or question? Hearing none, no other member present. Robin, thank you once again. Someday maybe you'll be able to give us a little different report, but we'll keep working on issues for you. Thank you. Have a good day. Next on our agenda is Kentuckians for Better Transportation. Please step forward, Mark Day with Bluegrass Airport. He is pitch hitting for Grant Gabbard today. Just have a seat.
Okay.
Please identify yourself for the record. I don't know if anyone else coming up with you, or are we just?
We'll have a few of our members step up.
Very good. Okay, Mark, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. My name is Mark Day. I'm the Director of Development and Facilities for the Lexington Bluegrass Airport, and I recently served as chair for Kentuckians for Better Transportation. And we've been absent from being here with you as an organization for the last year. We've undergone some leadership change, but we want to spend time with you all here and in your home districts and in our home districts talking about transportation. And so I just want to reintroduce our organization a little bit. KBT was founded in 1977 by a group of individuals, and we've grown to over 300 members. We represent aviation, rail, public transit, highways, roads, bridges, and river ports. And we love to say transportation matters, and we know that all of you understand that, but we like to get a little bit in the weeds and talk about our modes and talk about some of the things that are going on. We appreciate what you do as our elected representatives, and it's part of what we do to educate you guys and allow you to ask questions about our various modes. A few of us had the opportunity to present to the Joint Committee on Transportation yesterday, and I know some of you all were in that, so we'll be bringing some other leaders to you today. But no matter what mode that you hear from in our organization. One of the things as one of the airport guys that helps to, what we do at KBT is everything we do is connected by roads and bridges. All of our facilities, my airport, a river port, is meaningless if we can't move those people and goods across the roads and bridges for people to get to work, to move the goods that our people depend on. So it's how our economy functions, and it's important that we have an integrated multimodal transportation system, that it's safe and efficient. One of the best examples as far as development and growth here in our state is what Amazon is doing, their expansion in northern Kentucky at our Cincinnati, northern Kentucky airport, where not only are we seeing a relatively new airline, Prime Air, a cargo air, the airport expansion, all the roads that take care of that, and the buses, the Transit Authority of Northern Kentucky that's going to be helping to move employees to and from that facility. Our mission, we educate and we advocate for transportation. We represent all modes of transportation. We're interested in safety, sustainability, and not just sustainability and what a lot of people think of in how things are constructed and used, but sustainability in the long-term viability of that transportation system. And that fosters economic growth. It helps me and my family and my staff as far as the quality of life in our communities here in Kentucky. And again, with over 300 members, we're represented by design consultants, local governments, cities and counties, facility operators, contractors, chambers of commerce, and we're one of the founding members of another group, the Kentucky Infrastructure Coalition, which you may have heard of, and because we're broadening the scope just beyond transportation as well. But we just not trying to sound the alarm, but I believe a lot of you are already aware of there's a threat to our transportation network, and it's in funding, and funding affects safety, and it also affects growth. I was going to quote Senator Higdon on something he said yesterday, but it's important that you don't put words in the mouth of elected officials. But he made reference yesterday in the other committee about because of the drop in the wholesale revenues of gas, that over 5 years, about $1 billion in shortfall. And I believe you said something along the lines of, we can look around our pavements every day and see where that $1 billion was not spent. Is that? Okay. All right. But anyway, so we're here today just to share, and I'll introduce some of my fellow members. I'm actually going to let them introduce themselves as they come up. But again, one of the things that I also just want to encourage you as back home with groups that you're a part of, chambers, et cetera, we would just really want to offer that KBT be a resource to you. KBT.net is our .org is our website. But several of you, Representative Santoro, Senator Higdon, I know you guys are very familiar with the organization. Representative Upchurch, I know you've spoken at our conference, and we just really appreciate you guys, but we want to be there for you as well. So if you need folks to speak on any transportation issue and back home, let us be a part of that. We're happy to educate and advocate at anywhere that we can in the state. So with that, I'm going to step out of the way and let some of the smarter folks in our organization.
Before you step down, does anyone have a question, comment for Mark? You don't have to give me numbers, but since the COVID hit, I know our air travel is down. At your airport, just a percentage, or no comment?
Yeah, it's tough times.
Okay.
People, rightfully so, are afraid to fly. We'll say for my airport, our numbers, you take the month of July, we were excited that we hit 30% compared to July of last year. And the business traveler for my airport is our bread and butter. And Allegiant, as a vacation airline, used to be about 20% of my market. Right now, they are my #1 carrier. So the individuals, families flying for vacations, that number, while it's down some, is not down as much, but the business traveler is absent. Delta, American, and United, Southwest, all these major carriers, they've shrunk their business because nobody's buying tickets right now. Conferences are not a thing. Business travel is scaled back. International travel is not a thing. And so as far as our industry experts and who's an expert in forecasting these days, they're saying that for the aviation industry, outside of cargo, I'm just talking passenger travel, that it may take us 3 to 5 years to come back to where we were in February, or 2019 numbers. And but cargo's doing well. CVG and Louisville, I'm amazed at what they continue to do with UPS, DHL, and now Amazon. The general aviation airports, which, as you all may or may not be aware, we have 55 general aviation airports here in our state that don't have commercial air service. And those folks, their business models are being impacted as well in varying ways. Flight schools are up. If they have business headquarters in their community, those numbers have been the same. So it varies by markets. I know I'm really giving a long answer to your question, but again, as KBT, not only am I one of the airport guys, airports mean so many different things, as you all know from your districts, the size airports that you may represent, that it's a curious time. So
You have some big challenges, and that's what I wanted you to get out for us.
yes,
You put people to
that's
work.
an understatement, and yes, that is correct.
Very good. Thank you for that. I don't know who's next. It's Andrew. Come on up, Andrew Aiello. Just have a seat for the record. Give us your name and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Andrew Aiello, and I'm the General Manager of the Transit Authority of Northern Kentucky. Thanks, Mr. Day, for leading us today. As you can see, this is a multimodal group, and as Mr. Day said, we all have networks together. Different modes pull together to make our economy work. My job today is, again, to give you a little bit of overview of public transportation. I know I've had the privilege of speaking in front of this committee before. In Kentucky, we have 3 large urban systems in Louisville, Lexington, and Northern Kentucky. We have 6 small urban systems and 26 suburban and rural systems. So there's public transportation in almost every county of the Commonwealth. You can see on the next slide that we provide collectively more than 30 million trips a year. And those are trips to places like healthcare, to school, and to jobs. On the workforce front, we provide over 11 million work-based trips a year. So if you imagine we're connecting an employer with an employee over 11 million times. If you were to take those connections and that mobility out of the economy, it'd have a significant hit to the Commonwealth. You can see on this slide, too, is that the transit systems in this Commonwealth provide workforce to almost every major private employer in Kentucky. And we have relationships with many of those companies to help us get their workforce to their front door. I did want to speak to something that Chairman Santoro mentioned, is what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the public transportation industry. As you all know, transit, along with the other modes, were deemed an essential service at the outset of the pandemic, meaning that we needed to keep operating, and we did do that. The reason is because from a public transit perspective, we were moving essential workers to essential jobs. So it was talked about freight at the airport, folks that stock grocery shelves, all of the things that if we were fortunate enough to stay home and have things delivered to us, there were people out working to make sure that that happened. Folks that work in hospitals. Public transportation is the sole mode of transportation for a lot of those folks who kept our economy running during the shutdown. Also, it is the primary source of transportation for many people to access essential services like going to the grocery store or getting to their dialysis appointments or cancer treatments or other medical care. So we have not stopped operating, and I can say that for all the other transit systems in the Commonwealth. We've had to keep operating to keep that lifeline going. One of the very curious things about the pandemic is that the business model for public transportation is most efficient when we have a whole lot of people on one vehicle, right? You can imagine when you're trying to operate a business like this, if you can get 45 people into a 40-foot bus with one driver, that's a high efficiency in terms of moving people effectively. We can't put 45 people into a vehicle right now. We're having to put 2 and sometimes 3 vehicles to spread out loads so we can meet the requirements and we can keep social distancing in mind. So just like airports, our ridership is down overall. At Tank, we're down about 50% from where we were prior to the pandemic. That is also not spread equally. Those routes that serve major employers like CBG and Amazon and the hospitals, they're only down 15%. Whereas the routes that serve maybe folks that work in an office building, kind of the 9 to 5, maybe white collar worker, those routes are the inverse and they're down 85%. So it has been a very wild ride for your public transportation systems here in the Commonwealth, but they continue to do great work. From a funding perspective, again, we've talked to this committee quite a bit about this. When we look at surrounding states, Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, those states are investing 5 to 15 times more per capita in public transit than Kentucky, and that's an order of magnitude. It's not 5 to 15%. It's 5 to 15 times per capita than we are in Kentucky. In the fiscal 21 budget, there were VW settlement funds that were allocated, and that was a huge help to transit systems throughout the state. And they're using those funds to match bus purchases. If you remember, VW was about vehicles and emissions, and those funds are being used to match federal funds to replace aging and retired vehicles. So that has been a huge help, and we thank the General Assembly for that. The draft fiscal 21 budget included $8 million to basically fix what we were calling our toll credit crisis. You're all familiar with toll credits, how they have expired. From a public transportation perspective, there was a need to replace those toll credits with real money so we can continue to pull federal funds into the state. That was accomplished in the draft budget, but again, in March when things shut down, that did not survive the final budget. So we still want to keep this in front of the General Assembly. It's an important issue. And right now, as it stands, there's no long-term solution to this lack of toll credits. I have a couple quick slides that just graphically show you the impact. This is a slide that shows you how transit was funded in 2019. Are you seeing these slides? I apologize.
No, we don't have slides.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I thought I was speaking from the deck. I can give you just a general overview. There are about $30 to $40 million from the federal government, from USDOT, Federal Transit Administration, that come into the Commonwealth every year. In 2019, the way those funds were matched, you're all aware that a lot of federal funds require like an 80-20 match. They require a 20% match to pull them down and to use them. In 2019, the way they were matched is if you consider $40 million, you need a $10 million match. $2 million from the general fund for public transportation was used as part of the match, and then $8 million of toll credits, which isn't real money, but you all know toll credits unlocks those federal funds. That created the $10 million to pull the $40 million into our state. With toll credits being gone, we only have $2 million of state money to pull down $30 to $40 million of federal. So that federal money, 2/3 of that is frozen and won't get pulled into the state. In the short term, I think agencies are using the Federal CARES Act money to bridge the gap. They are looking at cutting service so they can provide that match, and they're trying to be creative. In the long term, there will need to be general fund allocation in order to continue those federal funds flowing into the state. So that's, as you have very difficult decisions to make in the next biennium, in the next budget year, we just wanted to make sure that we were communicating with you all about where we stand. And if you have questions, of course, you can get in touch with Mark, with myself, or anybody else in the public transportation world. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Do we have any questions from members that are here or remotely? No questions. Very good presentation. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next is Chuck Craycraft. If you would come in, please.
See, I will need to see the slides as they're
Is
going
there,
through.
do we have slides? We did not receive any slides, evidently.
Okay,
Well, do you need the slide? I mean, there's always next month.
I'll do the best I can.
Oh, I know you'll do a fantastic job. Thanks for coming. Sorry about that. I guess we just didn't receive them.
Okay.
We'll blame it on COVID. How's that?
There you go.
Just identify yourself again, Chuck. We
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm Chuck Craycraft. I'm a Senior Vice President with H.W. Lochner Consulting Engineers. We're a national civil engineering firm specializing in transportation issues, design, construction, and management. And we're based in Lexington here in Kentucky and have been in Kentucky for almost 50 years now. Some of our projects include Paris Pike design, the east approach to the Louisville Bridges project up to right-of-way plans, and I-75 realignment in northern Kentucky, the hill leading to the Brent Spence Bridge. What I'd like to talk about today are the impacts to transportation funding since 2015, and I chose 2015 as our base year because that's when our gas tax took such a big hit, as Robin's slides earlier so aptly displayed. At that time, our gas tax is still based on the average wholesale price of gasoline around mid-2010s. Fracking became much more prevalent. The technology for extracting petroleum products out of the ground improved, and the United States basically became energy independent. Well, a consequence of that was price of gasoline went down, and because Kentucky's gas tax is based upon the average wholesale price, it also went down, matching that fall. And so January 1st, the price declined 4.5 cents, January 1st, 2015, and then that was going to be followed by another significant drop with the next quarter's wholesale prices. Ultimately, it resulted in the 6.5 cent per gallon reduction of gas tax that Kentucky collects, as Senator, you noted yesterday and earlier today in Robin's presentation, which costs us about $200 million a year that could otherwise be used for transportation projects. Since that time, again, 5 years, that's $1 billion of lost transportation funding that we've had. So that's a big hit to our revenue source. Another hit that's taken place are the corporate average fuel economy standards that the federal government imposes upon car manufacturers, and that's commonly referred to as CAFE standards, the acronym CAFE. In 2015, the CAFE standards required cars to get about 33 miles per gallon. And in 2019, that requirement had increased to 39 miles per gallon. Now, that's not to say every car got that gas economy, but I use those figures to show the increase in fuel economy over that 5-year period. So taking that 5 years into account, that's about a 13% increase of fuel economy, which results, all things being equal with the miles driven, around $160 million of reduced revenue available through the gas tax, just from fuel economy. All of us are in favor of having more economical vehicles. It's good for the environment, it's good for people at home, it's just a good thing, but we have to pay for our roads some way, and that is a major loss, again, $160 million. So we got $200 million from taxes, we got $160 million from fuel economy increases. The third item that we've experienced is the increase of construction cost. So since that, in that 2015 to 2019 period, the construction cost index, and this is from the from the Federal Highway Administration, provide these numbers. Since that time, the construction cost has increased about 16%. So for the same amount of money, we're getting about 16% less product being constructed over that time. So there's another roughly $150 million lost purchasing power. And then the other thing that we're dealing with, again, it's in terms of economy, alternative fuel vehicles, which include hybrids, as well as completely electronic vehicles like the Teslas and the Chevy Volts and some other vehicles are becoming increasingly popular. The automobile manufacturers use these to help reach their CAFE standards. But that has a problem with revenue in that hybrids pay less gas tax for an equivalent use of the roads, and electric vehicles, of course, pay no gas tax because they're not funded, they don't run on gas. So I can't quantify, I looked around for some numbers to help me quantify that, but I was not able to find reliable numbers that I wanted to present today, albeit we can say that they are having an impact on the revenue available to us. So if we summarize all of those items, the CAF-8 increase, the loss of gas tax revenue, construction cost index, that would all come up to around $500 million per year of less revenue or less purchasing power that our transportation money has to offer today as compared to 2015. And indeed, Robin's bar chart indicated that decline over that period of time. So finally, adding all of those together, that $500 million, roughly $35 million, $30 to $35 million per penny of gas tax. You can see that's 14, 15 cents per gallon of gasoline tax to just get us back to where we were in terms of revenue and purchasing power that we were in 2015. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my presentation from memory.
Thank you very much. It's a lot of challenges for the industry, I know. And we have to make sure our citizens are driving safely. And it takes some funding to do that. And wow, I'm glad that we did put the floor to that years ago when that did happen. Does any of our members present have any questions or comments? Senator Higdon.
Since you touched on electric vehicles, I had a meeting and my staff assistant, Laura Beth Long, worked on some information on electric vehicles, and I've just shared with everybody currently right now that there's 1,500 totally electric vehicles in Kentucky, 34,500, I guess, hybrid vehicles. But they project by 2030 that there'd be 450,000 electric vehicles in Kentucky, and that's not that far off. So we have to close that gap and deal with that issue, because right now we only have to deal with 1,500 people. and
They're riding for free, is all I keep saying.
Few years, Mr. Chairman, we're going to have
to
to deal with 450,000
Yeah.
people. And as far as doing something to equalize that electric car user fee, they have to pay to use our roads.
Well said. I mean, it's just keeps getting the bigger and bigger, and the pie gets smaller and smaller for funding because of that, and I understand. Do any of our members remotely have anything to comment on? If not, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very good. Thank you. John Mayor, Deputy Judge of Christian County. Maybe he'll come up and give us some more information.
I feel like I'm sitting down in a hole. Just a note, I've been told that the slides that are being referenced apparently are available on your online portal, and for those that are interested in them. Good morning. I'm John Maury, Kentuckians for Better Transportation Roads and Streets Committee Chair. Senators Higdon, Representative Santoro, members of the General Assembly, thank you for this opportunity. In 1986, Tennessee Governor Lamar Alexander and Speaker Ned McWhorter crafted an $800 million plan to 4-lane roads across the state without debt. Inspired, some 4 years later, Kentucky passed our $500 million road bond program, which included the 4-lane US 127 into Frankfort, many of you enjoy, and 4-lane US 68 may finally finish this year. Although it was touted that investment in roads provides $5.80 for every $1 spent in construction, with Kentucky's slimmer financial position 30 years ago, that took leadership. Today, the road bond signs that were worn around here have been replaced by this one: better roads equal better jobs. I know all of you have seen these. The Kentucky Infrastructure Coalition has been going with this theme now for the past year, and obviously it's something that I'm sure you'll see come January. Kentucky transportation still needs investment and appreciates leadership. For example, Chairman Santoro, as you asked earlier this morning, the I-69 Ohio River crossing in Henderson is nearing the completion of its environmental impact statement process to await a record of decision clearing the way for construction. Will the EIS remain unsigned like its predecessor 20 years ago over concerns of Kentucky being able to afford our side of the agreement? As you all know, each cent of the motor fuels tax raises about $30 million in funds, with the wholesale floor 26 cents. Currently in Kentucky, 22.2% of the motor fuels tax KYTC uses for 12,760 miles of rural secondary. 18.3% is for county roads. 7.7% is for urban roads or streets for 465 municipalities. Although we're down to about 30 miles of unpaved roads currently in Christian County, it's the second largest in area, and like many local governments, faces a projected schedule of many decades for necessary maintenance. This year, our road funds have been cut 12.27%. Compounding our problem, other revenues are falling, such as the transient room tax by 28%, and funds are declining, such as the jail cash balance by $493,688.38, or 53%. Legislative action to permit local adoption of a restaurant tax or a liquor tax could plug some holes by raising as much as $500,000. Additionally, we're constrained in our ability to take advantage of a significant current trend. As the National Association of Counties Transportation Policy Steering Committee Highway Safety Vice Chair, I've become aware of other states or localities saving as much as 27% or more in material costs where funding is available for action. It has been said that there are more local governments making revenue transfers to transportation than can be remembered. One mayor pointed to their shift of $1 million, noting that it is somewhat offset by CARES funds this year. It was quickly added, but what about next year? Kentucky transportation still needs investment, as I'm sure everyone here today knows. Thank you, and I'll be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. It's a great presentation for us. You know, we know the biggest problem there is our counties and our cities are just hurting also. Do we have any members have anything to say? Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, as coming from an area that has struggled with we've struggled with transportation infrastructure as well, but particularly in Martin County with the water issue.
Yes, sir.
I think the same principles apply. I mean, we can learn lessons from what has happened there in Martin County with the water infrastructure, with our statewide transportation infrastructure. If we don't keep up and maintain that infrastructure, maintain those bridges and roads, and invest in the future maintenance, not just new projects, not just new roads and new building, but maintaining the old, there's a real lesson to learn there with the Martin County water situation, is that if we don't do that, we don't spend the money and invest in that maintenance, then there is a day of reckoning coming. And when that day comes, then, you know, what do we do? So I just wanted to add that, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you let me say that. Thank you.
Very good comments. It's I always say it's just like your house. You put a roof on it, you build a new house 20 years later, you better be ready to replace it. And our infrastructure needs maintenance. We learned that from the old days when we had the tolls on the bluegrass. It wasn't for maintenance, it was just to build the road. And that's what we need. We need funding for it. You know, this someone commented, first time KBT's been to our meeting in several years, 2 years. You know, we need this information. It was a great presentation. Thank you all for coming. We're going to continue working on these issues that we have, because if we can't get people to work, to school, to church, then what are we doing? And we're with you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
welcome to stay or take off or do what you need to do. Our next presentation is the Louisville Bridges. Megan McLean. Megan, are you with us? Last month, we had a problem with the internet connection. This month, we're...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Great.
Very good.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Megan McLean. I'm the Innovative Finance Manager for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. I deal a lot with the Louisville Bridges projects and other KPTO-related projects. You guys had asked me to provide an update on the impacts of COVID-19, on the progress for our procurement to replace our current full services provider, and on a class action lawsuit that's outstanding. If it's okay, I'll start with the COVID-19 traffic update.
Please, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. Things have improved a lot since COVID first hit. Back in April, traffic was down more than 50%. Now it's from 2019. Now it's down about 15 to 20% since 2019. So it is improving drastically as we've gone back to healthy at work. Revenue impacts were caused both by the traffic reduction and by the fact that we did close our local walk-up centers, which removed the only cash payment option. Without a cash payment option, we stopped adding fees to invoices so that for fear that our unbanked population would not be able to pay the invoices on time. So we reopened our walk-up centers on July 22nd, and we restarted aging our invoices and charging fees again on August 3rd. So those two items have caused, along with the improvement in traffic, have caused revenues to start to inch back up. For fiscal year 2020, we collected about 93% of what we were projected to collect. So, and then on top of that, we cut operations and maintenance expenses by $2.2 million. So we are for fiscal year 2020, things were pretty much okay. For fiscal year 2021, we do expect a larger impact. The best I can do is guess at how long things will have we will have reduced income, reduced revenue from the COVID-19 impacts. And given my best guess, I'm thinking we should be right around 70% of projected revenue. And all of that's important because all of this money that we collect from tolls goes to pay our bondholders from whom we borrowed the money to build the bridges, including a loan from the federal government through the CIFIA program. It also goes to pay for operations and maintenance expenses in that project area, in the Louisville area, as well as maintenance and operation of the whole system itself. Given that, we looked ahead and did what we're calling a stress test. And unless our guess is far off, we should, while we will have to dip into some general reserve accounts, we will have enough to cover our bond payments and our operations and maintenance expenses. That's what I have on the COVID-19 impact. Can I stop for questions there before I move to the next topic?
Yes, you may. Does any member present have any questions? What about remotely? Do we have any questions? If not, you may proceed, Megan.
Thank you. We are in the process of procuring a new full services provider. Our current full service provider contract expires in December of 2023. It takes at least a year to set up a new back office system ample time. So we do plan to provide a notice to proceed on that new contract in July of 2021, or at least sometime in the summer of 2021. This new contract will be for the back office system and the customer service center. Our roadside contract for the cameras and the loops and the treadles that are at the roadway, that will stay with the current vendor for another 2 years. There will be an extension there. We're splitting those pieces out to increase competition and make sure that as many people as possible will have a chance to, as many companies as possible will have a chance to give us a bid and hopefully give us some great new ideas. We are finalizing the RFP now. We're having an industry forum and vendor meeting the first week of September, and we'll publish the final RFP in early fall with proposals due this winter. And that should set us up to make some improvements and capitalize on lessons learned. So we're excited about that new development. The last topic was an outstanding lawsuit, and I can't say too much about that because it is ongoing litigation. There is litigation where none of the state parties have been named. KYCC hasn't been named. TIPIA hasn't been named. It's in the United States District Court in the Southern District of Indiana. It's being handled. Any effects on the state, which we don't know that there will be any, are being handled by the KYCC Office of Legal Services and TIPIA outside counsel in conjunction with the attorneys from NDOT and IFA. I probably can't answer too many questions on that. That's probably the most I can say on ongoing litigation. But I can go back and if there are any questions about the new procurement, I'm happy to take those or anything else having to do with the Louisville Bridges project or the toll system.
Thank you very much. Senator Higdon has a question.
And thank you for that report. Always interesting to hear about the Louisville bridges. Early on, and some years back, with the vendor, with the cameras, you were having problem capturing certain license plates, and I was just wondering, get an update on that, and what percentage of the vehicle traffic do you actually capture now, as far as being able to associate a person with a vehicle?
Sure. So in terms of being able to capture a picture of the vehicle, we're at 99%. Then after that, there is a process by which human beings look at the license plate and identify the jurisdiction and the license plate number. There are, we are still, I think the cutoff number for that is still at around 30%. And then after that, then we have to go, so if it's in Kentucky or Indiana, we go to the Motor Vehicle Licensing Department here at KYCC or the Bureau of Motor Vehicles for Indiana and find out who the owner is. If it's out of state, we pay a company called Duncan to provide us that registered owner information. And there are a few more that fall out at that point. So the cameras are working wonderfully. There are some processes after that mean we can't send a bill to everyone who crosses the road. However, given the transponders and I don't have the exact percentage, but it is a very high percentage of vehicles that are charged, but it's definitely not all of them, despite having images of nearly all of them.
It would be interesting to know the percentage of what we actually get paid for. That would be good information to have.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
I will look into that and get that number for you.
And what do you do? Do you ever write any of these tolls off that someone owes, or do they go on to continue to, I guess, gain interest and stick around forever?
Sure. So we don't charge interest on outstanding balances. There are 3 different fees that get charged if someone does not pay, and then at that point, in Kentucky and Indiana, we place a hold on the vehicle registration. We don't remove that hold on the vehicle registration until the toll is paid. If that vehicle is no longer having registration renewed or changes ownership, then that would go away. But so we do write off the amount for purposes of financial reporting when things are old and we don't expect to be able to collect on the receivable. We do write it off, but it is still live in our system, and we can still collect money on the account, and we do still keep that hold on the inventory.
One more question, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Just so what is your receivables? And I guess you have two different receivables, those that are good and the past due receivables. What would the past due be?
We are working on collecting that number right now for our year end. If it's okay, I'll get you that number just as soon as we do that. We're preparing that number actively for our capper here in the next little bit, so it won't be long.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Does any other member present? What about remotely? Do we have any questions or comments? Megan, thank you very much for your presentation. This is some new concept, the bridges, we need to keep up on that because we're going to be the ones that you're going to come to if there is ever a big problem. So thank you very much for presenting. If not.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Yes, ma'am. If not, we'll entertain the motion to adjourn. So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you all.